Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I, 33, male, had always known that my sister Rose, female 20, fake name, was the oopsie baby. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that, to me at least, but my parents, on the other hand, they absolutely despised it. They already struggled a lot taking care of me due to their poor mental health, but still made somewhat good parents to me. But when they found out about my mom's pregnancy and the fact that they couldn't get an abortion, it really broke them. And unfortunately, it also set the tone for their behavior towards Rose. It was immediately made clear to me that she would be the unwanted, unseen child, and there was something inside me that immediately just wanted to protect her after I found that out. So I started doing everything I possibly could for her, especially when no one was around. In short, I became like a substitute parent for her. Rose and I both knew she was the unwanted one. I mean, it doesn't take long for kids to see and notice these things. I did my absolute best to not let this happen, though. It was of no avail, of course. So, all my life, all I did was try to shield Rose, and in this manner, we went through all the stages and life. I practically spent my adolescence and adulthood being a replacement parent, worrying about Rose's future, trying to save for her college, you know it all. Classic parentification. My parents were least bothered, and Rose became attached to me a lot. Needless to say, this impacted both of our mental health tremendously, especially Rose's mental health. Initially, it was depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. But eventually, as Rose got into her adolescence, her anxiety and depression turned her into a troubled child. She'd date people she shouldn't be dating, would have random hookups, crash random parties, drink, and overall just do things detrimental to her life. My parents had washed their hands of her completely at that point, and me being far away from college and then super busy with my job, starting up and running a business, Rose didn't really have any supervision. I do anything I possibly could to get her to change. Unfortunately, none of it helped. Rose was able to let her risky behavior slide all these years. Unfortunately, as we all know, these things don't take you too far. A couple of months back, Rose found out she was pregnant with one of her friends with benefits. I was shocked, and I'd be lying if I denied that something inside me broke. But still, I knew I had taken responsibility for her. I needed to do my duty as a big brother, and so when she asked me if she could live with me along with her partner until she gave birth and found alternative housing, I said yes with no questions asked. From there onwards, I paid for her everything like I usually did. And Rose, on the other hand, didn't raise a finger around the house. I mean, I know I'm probably already in the wrong if I expected her to do anything for me just because I was helping her out, but I really thought it was a no-brainer. I thought she'd at least help me look after the tiny chores that I had to pay house services to get done, but of course, Rose, being Rose, sat back home all day, calling her friends and complaining about her situation to anyone that would listen. I was sort of getting fed up, but I stayed quiet. Well, I'm not really sure what happened. If Rose just saw my silence as a sign that she could take advantage of me, all she wanted, or whatever else, because what happened last night has left me in shambles, out of words, and questioning the entirety of my relationship with Rose. It started last night when I got an urgent call from my business partner to get to work immediately due to an emergency. This is very common in my profession, and I was usually prepared to call in the nanny who was available almost every time I'd call her. Unfortunately, just this time, she said she wouldn't be able to make it. I panicked. I knew I could drop my daughter off at a friend's place, but this issue seemed very time sensitive. Well, realizing Rose was home with her boyfriend, I thought she could take care of my daughter until I got matters sorted out. I approached her and told her everything and almost begged for her to take care of my daughter for a night. Rose immediately began saying no and telling me that she just couldn't because she had a date night planned with her boyfriend and how I shouldn't expect her to look after my daughter because she wasn't her responsibility. I was stunned at the way she was speaking to me. At that moment, something snapped at me, and I told her to pack her things and leave because if she didn't feel the slightest responsibility or even love towards my daughter, then I didn't have any for her either. Rose blew up at me and tried to argue. I didn't hear any of it and just left the house along with my daughter and dropped her off at my friend's place, which obviously got me late to my work. Thankfully, though, there were no serious consequences of that, and I was able to fix everything. But the thing is that it's morning currently. My extra shift is over, and I still haven't returned home. I'm sitting at my friend's place with a cup of coffee as she's dropping off my daughter to school. I'm thinking about everything that ever happened last night and all the messages Rose, her friends, her boyfriend, and his family have left me behind. Surprisingly, even my own parents have jumped into this situation. I feel too stressed about it all and feel like I shouldn't go home until I'm sure what to do. AITA? What should my next step be here? Any advice would be much appreciated. You guys were completely right in saying that the only reason why my parents got into this matter was that Rose had started harassing them. I found this out today by talking to my mom, who just wouldn't stop calling me after this situation took place. Apparently, Rose hasn't stopped spamming them and demanding that they allow her to live in their house and pay for her pregnancy because that's what they owe her for ruining her life by traumatizing her. Of course, my parents, being the way they are, would never take accountability for their actions, which have caused all of this, and in turn decided to spam me non-stop ever since this situation took place. It's truly a horrible situation overall, and I feel like I have somehow gotten stuck between trying to do something good for someone. Well, there's no coming out of it now, and I think I'll just have to go to my place and talk to Rose. I'm planning on helping her rent an apartment and paying for the rent for a month or two. After that, I have decided that she has to learn to be on her own. I just hope things go smoothly from here on. Well, things did not go smoothly. The moment I entered home, it was eerily quiet, and initially, I thought maybe Rose and her partner were asleep or just left the house, and well, the latter was true. They did leave the house, but it was nowhere as simple as it seemed. As soon as I entered the living room, the house was a mess. There was glass everywhere. The TV was broken, the dinner table was destroyed, and the couch was slashed. It was a horrible scene. I was terrified because initially I thought someone had broken into the house and hurt Rose. I immediately rushed to the bedroom to find her, but she was nowhere to be seen. It was only a letter that I found that said, "I hope you like the gift. This is what you deserve for being a horrible brother." I was astounded, to say the least. I called the cops immediately after and just waited for them as I looked around my house, which looked like a crime scene. The cops arrived shortly after, took a look at everything, took some pictures, got my statement, and looked through the security footage to make sure that it wasn't anyone except for my sister entering the house. It wasn't. So it didn't take long for them to find her with her boyfriend living at one of her friends' place. They were immediately arrested, and I was called over to the station where I was asked if I wanted to press charges. I told them I needed some time to think about it. That is when I told Rose that if she'd pay for the damages, I'd drop the charges and let go of her. Of course, she wasn't able to. She begged for me to give her some time, and I gave her a week's time to get her shit together. Currently, I'm in the midst of all the legal mess this situation has caused. Thankfully, I'm just feeling lucky that I can keep my daughter with my friend and she doesn't have to face this situation. I will keep you guys updated about what happens next. Hello, everyone. I had posted on this subreddit a couple of months back about my sister and me kicking her out of my house because she refused to take care of my daughter because I had to run for an emergency. Well, you guys will be surprised to know that it was my parents who ended up paying for the damages. And obviously, it was because they wanted to bribe my sister away from their house. Aside from being terrible parents, the way Rose has turned out to be now, I can't help but say it was a good move. I wouldn't want her living in my house either. It's truly heartbreaking to say this because all my life, all I had was a determination to take care of her and watch her grow into a beautiful, smart, mature woman. Unfortunately, the outcome of all my efforts turned out to be something far worse. And although I wouldn't completely blame it on her, I just hope she learns from her mistakes and, as she's jumping from one couch to another, realizes how much of an easy life I was trying desperately to give her, regardless of what happened. I still wish from the depths of my heart that she heals and becomes a loving mother to her son. Thank you all for being here with me throughout it all. I really appreciate it. NTA, it's saddening to see that Rose turned out the way her parents are. You truly don't deserve these people in your life, OP. Good on you for kicking them out. ESH, you can't expect Rose to help you just because you've given her a roof to live under. On the other hand, Rose was the a-hole for not helping you during an emergency, regardless of what you have done in this situation. It's better that you guys just don't stay around each other, in my opinion. Background. I, 24 male, have a very religious family. My parents put me and all my siblings, I am the oldest, in a private Christian school. I lived the worst years of my life there, even had some mental issues and tried to take out my own life. Don't worry, I'm in therapy since then and doing great. While I was studying there, I never was a good kid, which caused a lot of trouble, which made me get expelled when I was 14. I heard some awful things from the pastors. I refused to call them teachers or educators. Things like, "You'll never get anything in your life," or "the hell's fire is going to consume you because you're a loser and a sinner." So I went to public school, and it was the best thing. I learned I was good. I had friends and could be myself. So after high school, I was accepted in one of the best universities in my country. I graduated and started to work in a good company where I make good money. But here's the story. I'm currently living with my parents to save money and buy myself a house since they have a huge house and they want some financial help to keep paying for my siblings' education. This week my parents are out, so every day I'm picking up my younger brother, 15 male, in school because I'm the only one who has a car, but my dad, since little Ken doesn't like to take the bus. Yesterday, I went to pick him, and one of his teachers and principal called me inside, saying that he caused trouble. Maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. As soon as they saw me, the principal, who was one of my teachers, said to the other teacher, "This family is so messed up. Now I understand. This kid doesn't have an example." I got angry, but tried to stay polite and asked what happened. Long story short, my brother was questioning the teachers about everything, especially science and history. For me, it's not a problem. I learned that school is a place to question everything and said, "I don't see any problem in his questions, but I know that you are incapable of teaching, so I will remind him to never question dumb people." The principal was super mad and started to yell at me, saying that I was probably working at a McDonald's because that was the best that I could do in my life. I started to brag about everything that I conquered, even said that in that room I had the highest salary. I bragged about my car, about my university, and said that I was at the top of my class ever since I got expelled from that garbage. Took my brother, and we left home. A couple of hours later, my mother called me saying that the principal called her and I was totally disrespectful and should not act to older people like this. She even asked, "Do you want to get your brother expelled too?" I said, "That would be great because he will finally have some chance of winning in life and achieving something." She called me an a-hole and told our family that I'm calling my brother a failure and wanted him to get expelled. So, did I really take things too far? Am I the AH? ESH. You aren't the one who has to deal with the consequences of your little revenge fantasy. Your brother is. And if you have such a problem with this school, why are you helping your parents pay for it? Instead of getting some roommates and letting them give up and put your siblings in the regular school because this one is too expensive? NTA, the pastor recognized you and proceeded to continue what he'd done to you years ago. Good on you for calling him out without cussing at him. What's your brother's take on this? He can see how well you succeeded after you left that holy hell. I'd continue to help him get away. Encourage him to keep questioning in class, but to always be respectful, so he doesn't get in trouble for anything other than his words. I'm sure the priests can relate to that, given their history of persecuting people speaking out. Science class would be a riot for me. I, 24 female, currently live with my parents. I pay rent to them and have been actively trying to purchase a home for about a year now. But, well, there are plenty of other subreddits to discuss how that's going for people. My brother is in college, and my parents spent this past weekend visiting him Friday through late Sunday. While they were gone, I was home watching their dog. The problem arises from these fairly new cameras my dad has set up inside and outside the house. They apparently have an app that alerts my dad when there's movement, as well as a speaker that he can talk through using the app. The cameras can also pick up the sound so he can hear if I reply. That entire weekend, my dad would yell through the speakers every time I left my room. He would be notified every time and start talking and watching me. Usually, it was to yell about aliens. I know this sounds really weird, but he started going off to me about aliens years ago, and it seemed like a joke at the time, but it has gotten very old. Other times, he would try to talk to me, but the audio isn't great, and I was usually pissed he was watching me, so I rarely replied after he ignored me, begging him to stop because I was uncomfortable. He has cameras all throughout the first floor, as well as in the front outside. He could watch, yell as I got in my car, and overlooking the backyard. So he distracted the dog when I was trying to get her to poop. I kept telling him to stop watching me and that it made me uncomfortable, but he didn't stop. As a result, I barely left my room except to take care of the dog and eat one meal a day. My dad texted me at one point over the weekend and asked, "Who loves you?" I replied, "Hopefully someone who's not a stalker creep." And he said I was mean. When my parents returned from the trip, my dad was sulking, saying I was mean for what I said. He maintains that I was meant to not talk to him through the cameras and for telling him he was creeping me out. My mom agrees with me that the cameras are creepy, but won't say anything to my dad. My dad says he can do what he wants in his house. I'm lucky to be able to stay here. I'm awful for not being close to him because he's going to die soon. He has said this since I was a very young kid, and other things like that. I understand that I'm lucky to be able to stay with my parents until I can get an offer accepted, and I express thanks frequently. The things he's saying are really starting to eat at me, and I'm starting to feel like maybe I am in the wrong for feeling weird about my dad's home security measures in his own home, and therefore am an a-hole for calling him a stalker, creep, despite everything. AITA? Putting this here, since it's brought up in many comments, I think there is less mental health concern than people are thinking due to the alien thing. He's entirely normal when he's around other adults. He still sees my brother and me as well as any friends our age as kids. This seems to be something he specifically bothers me with. NTA, but if you don't coordinate with some friends to wear alien costumes and come into your home in the middle of the night the next time they're traveling, you aren't living your best life. I would turn all 5E cameras away or put tape over them. I would also try my best to find that new home as soon as possible. Living there sounds like a nightmare. NTA, your dad creeped me out by just reading what you went through. WTF? Why is it so important to him that you speak to him through the cameras? Why isn't your mom saying anything? I'm getting shivers at the thought of constantly being watched like that. Your dad needs psychiatric help. Seems like he needs it for his mental stability. He cannot be well having the need to behave like that.